Okay, well, tonight we are going to take care of some great business. And we're going to dive into some content that is really spatial. Spatial. Personally, this is the book that I read every single day, I'll say nearly every single day of my life. It's the most important book in my life. It's where I've done the most learning from. I've attempted to read other people's books, but it just doesn't quite do the same thing for me personally as what this book does for me. Now, I haven't always been that way, just so you know. I hope I'm not painting the picture that I'm some wonderful, holy person, because I'm not. I'm on the same journey everybody else is, and I hope I'm not painting the picture that I'm a Bible thumper. Well, I guess I kind of am. That's gross. It is so gross. I used to hate people like me. So sad. Forgive me, Lord, for all of that caca. That's so bad. But I didn't like people who read that book at all. I just couldn't stand them, especially those that, just sat around and quoted it all the time as though we needed them to. You know what I mean? Well, Mark something says, so, show off. That's kind of how I would see it. It's like, show off. You're just making the rest of us seem like we're a bunch of sinners. And you're still one too, you fool. Anyway, so, and I, who can relate to that? Paul said, or, Exodus 20 says, no, can you please stop citing the thing and just talk like a normal person? That would be awesome. Now, all of you probably have never had those thoughts. Seriously, I've had some serious judgment issues throughout my life, and continuing to topple over those and discover those and dig them up and throw them the heck out like dirty trash. You know that trash that sits under the trash bag in your trash bin in your kitchen? I know about that. You know about that, right? Yeah, that's the kind of trash I'm talking about. Not the trash that's sitting nice and pretty in the bag that has some kind of deodorizer in the bag these days. What's up with that? They now have trash bags that have deodorizer in the bag, right? Trash is trash, whether it is perfumed or not. It is still nasty trash. Is it not? Just like poop. This whole poopery thing, same thing. Like poopery, it's a thing. Have you ever heard of poopery? Look at this. All of you guys know about poopery. To me, it just smells like perfumed poop. Right? It's like, to me, it's like completely useless. I still know someone pooped and I can still get fragments of it. There's still fragments of it. It's a little hidden, it's a little pretty with some floral thing, but it's still poop and it still smells like flowery poop, which means it's still poop. Anyway, so the same with the judgment inside of our heart. It's still poop and it's still there. I'm not talking about the stuff that's on the surface. I try to dig and get out the stuff that's beneath the surface, the trash that's underneath the trash bag in the bottom of the trash bin that everyone tries to ignore, and they leave it there. Not Dani Johnson. I vacuum that crap right out. Cannot handle trash on the trash can. No coffee grinds from my husband. No peels. Can't handle it. Anyway, so I don't want to paint the picture that I'm this Bible-thumping, person. I am, I guess, in all reality. It's a sad, terrible thing that I'm in that class of people I used to judge really bad. But to be honest with you, this is not a religious book at all. It's a historical book. It's a book that has so much wisdom in it that, yes, religion has grabbed and created all these different brands of it, all from the same book, which is pretty trippy. Whether it's the Baptist brand or the Pentecostal brand, or the charismatic brand or the Catholic brand, or, name your brand. I'm sure it's all here in this room. There's lots of different brands out there, and they all have their own shirt and their color of their jersey and their own little chant. But in all reality, they didn't write this book at all. And this book has no brands. It's just an amazing historical book that has so much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that is in it. And I want to be honest with you in saying that majority of what I've learned about life, about business and marriage and parenting, about myself and the things that need to change in me have come from this very, very powerful book that is really alive. Like, I've read it cover to cover. I'm going through my 17th time right now. I did 16 at the first part of the year, and my goal was to finish 17th time by the end of this year. I might not make it, but I'm pretty close. I'm at, page 600 right now, and I've got another 617 to go. So for the end of the year. But I do my best to read it on a daily basis because it speaks to me. And I think if you were to read it on a daily basis, it would speak to you too. If you take off all of the designer branding off of it and you just see it for what it is. I mean, there's intense romance in there. There's murder in here. There's sci-fi, some really trippy sci-fi stuff in here. There really is. Weird, just, walking on water, a whole sea parting into, a river parting into. It's a little strange, like food falling from the sky. It's a little sci-fi. There's some just strange, like, wow, that's a trip, you know what I mean? So it expands my faith and it challenges me on a daily basis. And tonight I want to teach you how to read it from a perspective that will challenge you, that you'll start to see into it for what it is and start taking off all the extra branding and all the scariness off of it and read it for what it is. Human nature is inside these pages. I think it's the greatest study of people. It really is the greatest study of people, a study of our weaknesses as well as our strengths, how we were all made, as well as how the Creator speaks to his creation. He motivates people in very different ways inside this book, various different ways. Like, for example, Noah. He tells Noah to build a boat that no one had ever seen before, build an ark. Because everyone's gonna die. And so obviously, Noah was the kind of organized guy who would follow directions, and he was motivated to save his own butt and his family's butt. That he was motivated by. So he's like, yes, sir, no problem. And, he listened to every single instruction, and he built this boat that saved him and his family. A couple pages later, you see Abraham, who has good prominence inside of Iran, and his family is pretty successful, and they're successful sheep herders. And the same God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, that spoke to Noah and said, build this ark because everyone is going to die, he spoke completely different to Abraham, where he tells Abraham, who's motivated by something totally different, where he says, leave your father's house and all the comfort and all the luxury that you have, and I'm gonna make you much richer. I'm gonna make you really famous if you leave your father's house. So he knew exactly what to motivate Abraham. He motivated him by rich and fame. He motivated him with the carrot of blessing is what he motivated him by, to get him to leave the comfort of his land that he had known, that his family was prominent in, that they had some political pull in. Do you understand? They were known in that place and they were fully well established. And he wanted him at, 80 years old to leave your retirement and go do something absolutely crazy. I will make you rich and famous. So it's beautiful to see how the Creator talks to his creation based on what motivates the individual. I don't think you caught that. Throughout this entire book. Why? What motivates us motivates us. Not supposed to judge what motivates one individual over another. Each one of us are made, and by the way, all of that is in his image. Abraham, Noah, and the list goes on and on. And so as I've studied this, because I've been studying people for 30 years, which is funny and weird and strange and all of that. I've been studying people for 30 years. This has been the greatest study for me about people, and the greatest study of a mirror of myself, of my character, of how easy it is for me to fall and to fail, and then where there is mercy for me when I do. And to see that throughout this book, one of the greatest things I discovered in here, as I read this thing cover to cover, looking for one perfect family, didn't find one. Isn't it funny? There is not a single perfect family in this book. Either that or we have the wrong definition of the word perfect. We don't have the right understanding of perfect. The other thing that I found was that every family was, in today's labels, dysfunctional. And so when we have this label of a dysfunctional family, what does that make us look at and desire? Perfection. We want a functional family. What the heck is that? Right? Think about it. So, and sadly, our churches have painted that picture, right? That, your kids don't sin and your spouse doesn't sin and the pastor doesn't sin. We know better than that today with, all the caca that's coming out everywhere. We see that, no, we are a mess. And when we can be honest with the mess, then we can identify with each other and quit trying to live this lie. That doesn't mean go forth and sin happily. What that does mean is don't be an idiot. Don't be an idiot. You'll reap what you sow, which is basically what this entire book is about, is that you will reap what you sow. What you hand out is going to come back to you. So tonight we're going to look at a young king, a young man. And again, my goal tonight is to help you learn from this, to let it teach you the way that it's taught me. You're going to learn how to create wealth from this book. You're going to learn how to solve all your people problems with this book if you choose to read it. It's totally up to you. I challenge you to read it cover to cover. Quit reading it like a dictionary. Quit reading it like you read a magazine, which is you just flip to what you think you're interested in, and you think God is talking to you. Okay, Lord, what do you want to say to me today? Start in Genesis chapter 1, full. I don't know of any other book that people read like that, where they just kind of go, No, have any of you read my books? By the way, all the wisdom or any knowledge or any teaching has come from this book that are in those 3 books. That's all. But how many of you started with chapter 1? Oh, you did. How many of you made it all the way to the end? Oh, that's interesting. You mean you didn't start at chapter 12 and then go over to chapter 5 and then run over to number 7 and then down to 2 and then up to 14 and then back to number 1? Because if you did that, how confused would you be? Would you get the full message? Here's another question. How many have been to a movie before? You have? Let me see the hands. How many have been to more than one movie? Okay. Question. Do you walk into a movie an hour into the movie? How many of you don't walk into a movie an hour into it? Okay. How many of you don't walk into a movie 3/4 of the way into it? Oh, well, that's so interesting. So you value a movie more than you value that book. Especially those of you that just start in the New Testament. You started 3/4 into the book, missing all of the foundation, missing all of the teaching. It's floating. You don't know who the characters are. You don't know what's going on. You don't have an understanding of the character of the one who actually wrote and authored all of it. We just start 3/4 of the way through. How confused will you be walking into a movie 3/4 of the way in? Totally confused. Thus is our world today. Don't have an understanding of their creator, don't have an understanding of the character, don't have an understanding of how history works, how it repeats itself, why these stories are here to shape us, to mold us, to do what? Be better versus the same. Because if we're not wise, we're going to make the same exact mistakes as our ancestors have made, including the ancestors who are still on the planet, your parents, who are trying everything in their heart, soul, and mind to not make any mistakes. How many of you don't purposely screw up? How many of you purposely try not to screw up? Your parents are the same way. Your parents are the same exact way. All of us, I think all of us on the planet purposely don't try to screw up. And when we do, it's hard for us. And that's what we see inside of this book. So I think largely that this book has kept me on track. I think that the love of my God, I know this beyond a shadow of a doubt, that apart from him, I screw up 1,000 times worse than when I'm choosing to walk with him. That's reality. And I screw up a lot, doing my best to walk with him. But apart from him, I can do no good. Anything good that happens in my life is because he honors what's in this book. But if you don't know what is in this book, you don't know what's possible. No idea what's possible. Okay, so I'm going to start, I want to start with, I'm one of those weird praying people. And you're in my house right now. So, welcome. Usually I would feed you. I love to cook for you, but I'll do something better and we're going to pray. So, Father, thank you for all the different walks of faith that you have brought here tonight. Thank you for the different levels of understanding of you, the Creator, and the different levels of understanding of your creation. Thank you, Father, for giving us the world as our playground as well as our purpose. That you've given us this planet as our purpose. You've given us the people that are around us as our purpose. Our purpose to bring light, to be light. That you've called each and every one of us to be the light of the world. To not hide our light under a bushel. And forgive us, Father, for doing that from time to time. Forgive us for the times that we fall away from you. Forgive us, Father, for the times that we've read this book like it's a dictionary or a magazine. Father, I pray that you help your word to come alive tonight. Help us to see truth. Help us to see and gain understanding. God, I can't teach anything. You are the teacher. I can't open any ears. I can't open hearts or minds. I can't even open my own. But Father, I can press in, I can ask, and I can surrender, and I can submit to your ways. Father, I pray that you put that same desire into every person that can hear my voice right now. God bless this night. And I say to you, Father, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for every decision that was made this week. Thank you for all the work that our hands have done. Thank you for all the problems that each one of us solved this week. Thank you, Father, for all the errands that were ran, all the food that was created by all of the hands that are here in this room and the hands that are outside of this room. And Father, thank you that you bring rest, that if we open up our spirit to you this night, you bring your rest into us. Father, move the things out of us so that there'd be more room to receive more of your spirit. Help us to walk away from the things that are useless and senseless, that are wasting our lives. And let us be used as a vessel of light, as your servant and as your children, as you designed us to be. Open my ears, Father. Open the ears of my heart and the eyes of my heart. Help us all to be sensitive to you. I pray that you move prophetically tonight if you choose to. Father, heal bodies that need to be healed. Strengthen the weak. Humble the proud. Give us a chance to change. Seal us in your love and in your spirit. Fill this room with your Holy Spirit, with your Ruach HaKodesh, your Holy Spirit, that will guide us, lead us, love us. And Father, I come against a spirit of confusion, malice, a spirit of religion, false religion that has warped, perverted your truth. And Father, I bless every pastor that is here tonight and listening to this recording. Every pastor, every elder, every leader, every business leader who is pastoring a business. Bless them. Bless the work of their hands. Bless them with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Help them, Father, to grow in their leadership, which means help them to grow in their humility. Heal the wounds, Father, from the biting sheep that they have been leading. And Father, for those who are aspiring to lead, train all of us to lead according to your ways, according to your truth, according to what gets blessed versus the continuous struggle that we seem to sign ourselves up for. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, amen. In the name of Jesus the Messiah, amen. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I did not grow up in a church. I grew up in an atheist home, violently abusive, drug-infested home, where there was no boundaries of any kind. And when I was 13 years old, I found myself in a church service, sort of. It was actually nothing but a bunch of kids and a school principal. And that day I had heard the story about Jesus from Nazareth, which I had no idea where it was. I got a D in geography, so I had no idea where Israel was or could not understand any of these names or anything of that. And I first heard this story this time, actually right now in 1982. It says 37 years ago. Is that right? Am I counting correctly? 37 years ago. 37 years ago in Palo Cedro, California. Is there anyone here who's ever been to Palo Cedro, California? Nope. Is there anybody here has ever heard of Palo Cedro, California? Have you ever heard of Redding, California? Okay, it's 8 miles east of Redding, California. Population about 700, more churches than gas stations, one grocery store, one blinking yellow light. Just a really super small town, largely a lot of religious people in that town. And so when I heard the message that came out of this book, I don't know what came over me, but I began to weep like a baby, and I could not stop it. And I was embarrassed. We were like new kids at this new school, and it was a tiny little school in two single wide trailers that had mold in it, and it was on the property of an old church that had that musty. Have you ever been in an old church? It's that musty smell. You know what I mean? I don't know how to explain that musty smell, but it's kind of nasty. It smells like there's pee on the ground. But that's what it smelled like in there. I remember the smell. Between the trailer that had mold in it and the musty smell of this old church that just felt so like, scary. But I had never been in a church before, ever. I had never been around church people. I'd never heard this story. God was a cuss word in the house that I grew up in. So it was like a foreign message. But when I heard the message the very first time, around this time, it's at the end of this month in 1982. So I was 13 years old when I heard the message. And I began to weep uncontrollably. And you have to imagine, I'm brand new at the school. It had to be, maybe a week long that we were there, maybe a few days. I can't remember the exact time. I just know it was October of 1982, towards the end of the month. And we started somewhere in the month of October at this new school. So we are the new kids. Our parents have to drive us to school, and my parents hotbox us every morning on the way to school. Is there anybody here that does not know what a hot box is? Okay, cool. A hot box is when what you do strategically is you roll yourself a big old Cheech and Chong joint, and you get in your car and you have all the windows up and you roast a big bowl, the big joint. So my parents would smoke weed in the car, a 15-minute drive, taking us to school. Now, how many of you have ever been around a smoker? Not a smoker of weed, just cigarettes. Okay, have you ever been in a smoker's house? What do you smell like when you leave that house? You smell like smoke, right? Well, guess what? We smelled like going to school. We smelled like weed every single day. Why? Our parents, there was just nothing but a big smoke cloud in our house all day long, every day. So our clothes smelled like weed, my hair smelled like weed, do you understand? And we're going to a nice Christian school. My parents took us out of a public school and put us in a private one because my dad went through my nightstand drawer and found love letters from Travis Sluter. I still have never found the guy. But I should thank him for those love letters and thank my dad for going through my drawers, because if he hadn't found those letters and turned my bedroom upside down and inside out, he completely ransacked my bedroom. I walked in the door and he was screaming at me and telling me that I was going to go to a private school that forces me to wear dresses, and then we're under security, and we're going to be watched all the time. There's only 8 kids in the class because you're not going to end up pregnant like your mother did. And that should have been a sign. I didn't even connect the dots. I didn't even think to ask, what do you mean that my mom will get pregnant? My mom told me she was a virgin on her wedding night when she married Dan. My name is Danette. His name was Dan. I was named after Dan. No, I met him when I was 6 months old. Yeah, it was awesome. So anyway, I'm super grateful for Travis Luter and those letters, and I'm super grateful for my dad going through there. Why? Because they threw us in this private Christian, musty, mold-smelling school. And from that, I hear a message, October of 1982. I'm weeping. In the back, I smell like weed. We are the new kids. And I'm bawling uncontrollably, totally embarrassed. What are these kids thinking of me? So I'm literally hiding myself as I'm crying, and everyone is leaving the building. School principal comes up to me and says, "Would you like to meet Jesus?" And for some unknown reason, I said yes. And she prayed with me. And that day, something changed inside of my spirit. Something happened, and something came alive inside of me. There was like a fresh hope that came inside of me. Now, I was dyslexic, so I did not know how to read. In fact, I didn't read my first book till I was 21 years old. I managed to make it all the way through school without ever reading a book. So the dyslexic gift is a photographic memory, which is how I passed tests. Is that my mind would take pictures of my notes, and I would see what the answers were and would write the answers down on a piece of paper. So I would run off in the field with my Bible when my parents were fighting or snorting coke or doing whatever they were doing. When the screaming was intense, when the beatings were intense, I would head off in the field by myself with that book, and I would just sit there and I would attempt to read it but could not understand it, and I would just begin to talk to this God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, who sent his son to die for my sins, that washed me clean and gave me a new life. And it really happened. So I'd spend that time just talking to him, and I didn't know how to pray. I would just talk, say how I felt, what was bothering me. Please help my parents. Please help my parents to know you. Please get me out of this house. Please get me out of this situation. Please help my dad not come into my room tonight. These were the things that I would be saying. I continued on in that school, and then ended up pregnant at 17. And pregnant at 17 didn't go over well with that school, with those people in that town. Just was not a good combination. How many ever did something really, really bad and got judged by church people? Yeah, okay. And so that wound of that judgment hurt more than any beating I ever had from my dad, hurt more than my biological father giving me up for adoption, hurt more than all the words that were spoken to me by the man that raised me. It hurt so much more. All that judgment and rejection, the scorning, as well as the isolation and the manipulation that came forward, that was so much more painful than anything that I had suffered in my childhood. So I walked away from my first love, which was God. I walked away and said, God, if I have to be like your people, I want nothing to do with you, your people, blankety blank, blank, blank. All the language I learned from my parents at a very young age, I used it really, really well. And I walked. I'm out. This is stupid. It doesn't work. If being like your people, if walking with you means turning out like them, no thank you. I'm out. This sucks. And I walked. And I went headfirst into the whole metaphysical world. And I spent 5 years in the metaphysical world until on my birthday of 1993. And on my birthday of 1993, something very powerful happened. I ended up back in a church, not by my own will, but because I wanted to honor somebody that I respected whose wife had died. And I wanted to honor my boyfriend at the time, now husband. And so we were sitting, and there was this African-American and Puerto Rican evangelist who was sweating and spitting and sweating and spitting some more and spitting some more and sweating and jumping all over the place. I'm like, what a freak show. What a freak show. And then I'm looking around like, oh, these losers, man, get a life. These people are so stupid. They like can't even see this stupid show. And I was judging everybody that was around me and judging the person that was on the stage. And then all of a sudden I had this thing speak to my spirit, and it said, you know, you're sowing some pretty bad karma, which is in the metaphysical world, karma, but in the biblical world, reaping and sowing. So I'm like, oh crap, I understood that law. That law actually helped me become wealthy. So here I elbow my boyfriend. I say, Hans, give me a piece of paper and a pen. And so he's looking around, and Damien actually gets the piece of paper, pen, and hands it over. And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to sow good karma now. So I'm going to sit forward on the edge of my seat because I don't want 5 jerks at the next first steps to success. I don't want 100 jerks at the next first steps. I am being such a jerk to that speaker, and I'm going to reap what I have sown. I'm being such a jerk to all these people around me. I'm going to have all these jerks pay me a visit. I understood the law of reaping and sowing. So I sit forward, and I'm going to act like I'm paying attention. I'm going to take some notes, and I'm going to give the preacher my undivided attention. So I'm sitting there. That's some good S. Hans elbows me. He's like, dude, you teach that at First Steps. I effing know. I didn't know that was in the Bible. Could you imagine being at a special conference, a special church service with an evangelist from out of town, and someone's dropping F-bombs around you? Guess what? I wasn't struck by lightning. Nope. His best friend Chris is sitting on the other side. He's like, dude, you teach that at First Steps. I effing know. I didn't know that was in the Bible. This S is so good. Could you imagine being in your church and having someone drop F-bombs, whispering all around you? I want to know which of you would be giving them dirty looks, glaring at them. Many of you have done it. And it's a brand new person who needs God. Actually, you need him more than they do. Because you think you have him, and yet you're judging somebody who doesn't know better. So who's the real sinner? So both are, in that case. So I'm taking notes, and I'm like, wow, man, this is effing mind-blowing. He asks everybody to stand up and repeat after him. And he begins in a prayer. Father, forgive me. I've sinned against you. And I lost it. I lost it. He gave an invitation to receive the Messiah. My hand was up. My heart was bowed down. And that night I rededicated my life to my Creator, the lover of my soul, my real Father in heaven. That was a long time ago. 1993 is 26 years ago. I've been walking with him since, pursuing him since. That doesn't mean that I haven't sinned a lot. That doesn't mean that I haven't failed a lot. That doesn't mean that I haven't done disgusting things. I've done it all in that 26 years. And sadly, what's probably ahead of me is more. But here's what I know. He is merciful. He is gracious and compassionate. He is love. And no matter how bad I screw up, trying not to screw up, he still, when I return back to him, receives me with open arms. That when I have found myself as a judgmental bigot, there he is with open arms, saying, I forgive you. I forgive you. You owe me nothing. I paid the price. You are washed clean. And this is a clean slate. That clean slate has been given to me so many times. And it probably will be given to me again and again. Because at this stage in the game, most of the time I don't realize when I'm screwing up until after I get to see the fruit. There's not something in me willfully that wants to screw up. But yet, I find myself with the wrong heart. I find myself with the wrong thing coming out of my mouth. I find myself offensive, not even realizing what I'm doing. But what's awesome about the God that I serve is that he's gracious and compassionate. He's merciful and loving. So after I rededicated my life to him, I had already been running 2 companies, 2 multi-million-dollar companies. And what happened as soon as I rededicated my life to him, in fact, it happened while I was at that church service, I was being embezzled for the second time while I was there. Awesome. I had just had the biggest success that I had had in 11 months, $5 million in sales. That was crazy. I'd started a new company. I manufactured my own nutritional supplements and Chinese medicine, and I manufactured my own skincare. And while I was there that night, rededicating myself back to my God, it was all being stolen. It was really beautiful, as well as a bookkeeper that didn't pay the tax bill, but instead did something else with the money. So I owed the IRS a lot of money after making $1 million. It was awesome. It was amazing. So it was an incredibly intense year, walking out my salvation so I don't kill somebody, because that's exactly what I wanted to do. But I knew deep down in my spirit that wasn't the right thing to do. So since that time, in that season, I got really confused. I thought, oh, well, maybe my business is being embezzled because I'm supposed to go to seminary or something, and I'm supposed to become some kind of pastor or preacher or something. And I really thought that, oh, well, if I'm going to walk with God, then that means I can't be in business, and that means I shouldn't be in business, and that means I probably shouldn't make money either, and so I should go and learn this whole thing. And then I started picking up that book, and I started reading it cover to cover, and guess what I didn't find? Pastors. I didn't find seminary. I didn't find Bible colleges, Bible schools, schools of worship, schools of ministry. None of those things were in that book. In fact, I didn't find a single church in there either. But what I did find, right in the beginning of the book, was rich people, rich business people, and a drunk. The guy was so drunk, he was naked in front of his family. That's pretty hammered. I could identify with that guy. Is anybody else here, someone that can identify with the drunk guy that's naked? I got some stories with you about me and tequila. Thus, Dani don't drink no tequila anymore. You stay away from the tequila, step away from the tequila. Tequila and Dani are no longer friends. Not after what happened at my job in a parking lot. Yeah, it just wasn't a good idea for Dani. It's bad. It's really bad. It was Hawaii. It was just bad. It was a nice warm night. Tequila makes you even warmer. It's very embarrassing having your coworkers walking by as you're practicing Genesis chapter 1. Naked in the garden, the parking lot. Your customers are everywhere, your coworkers, your boss walks by. Hi! Tequila and Dani are no longer friends. I have chills. I can't believe I just told you that story. There's just some things I shouldn't tell you. And that was probably one of them. It was a long time ago. It was, 21 and stupid. Still stupid, but not 21 anymore. So anyway, I really did. I found these stories. I'm like, whoa, dude, he's a drunk. Whoa, Abraham is like a wealthy businessman. Whoa, his son took the family business. Isaac took the family business and grew it. Whoa, and then he had 2 sons, and those 2 took the family business and grew it. Like, whoa, dude. These guys had employees, i.e. servants. They had employees, they had families, they were politically engaged. Like, you just see it in the text. And I'm like, dude. Like, I would go to church and I would hear them talk about Abraham, and I see Abraham in some holy robe, right? With like some kind of, title and a business card that says pastor or prophet or something. You know what I mean? So that's how I would, I'd go to church, I'd hear them talk about these people, and I would read about Abraham, like, he's perfect. No, dude, he freaking lied twice right there in the text, which means he lied a whole lot more than those 2 times in the text, okay? And talk about hurting your wife, like, dude, do not tell anyone you're my wife, you're my sister, I need to cover my own butt. Not once, but twice. So I'm like, wow, like the guy made some mistakes and God still blessed him and we're all still talking about him, and whoa, he kept his promise to him. Now listen, how many of you have an expectation of everyone keeping promises to you? It'd be great if they did, right? Okay, and yet how many of you have a hard time keeping your promises? How many can't even remember the promise you made to somebody sometimes? Right? I mean, I forget about promises I've made. You forget about promises you've made. But the God that we serve, like he keeps promises to dead people. Seriously, he keeps promises to dead people. Like he's still fulfilling the promise he made to Abraham. Abraham is so dead. He's been dead for thousands of years, and yet the promise is still there. I think he's pretty, you can count on him. He's pretty amazing. So anyway, I'm going through, and then like I hit this prophet Daniel. It's not called the prophet Daniel. He doesn't even know he's a prophet. He's just some guy who's been like shipped off to another country. And he's a really good-looking guy. That also was strange. Like in the book, it says that Daniel and Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, that they were like super good-looking people. Like, weird. Wait, I thought if you're a Christian, you're supposed to be ugly. That's what I thought. It's very easy to see. You go to church and you just see people who don't take care of themselves. No, seriously. And if you're pretty, they like stay away from you. If you're healthy, they stay away from you. But if you're older and whatevers, then they love you. They'll give you these A-frame hugs. Nice little pat. But in the Bible, there's a kiss. You kiss everybody. You kiss strangers. You kiss friends, Oh, I can feel the love. Let me give you a side hug. But in the Bible, it's like a kiss. Both cheeks, on the forehead, on the lips, like, mwah, I love you, hello. Strange culture we live in. Not very biblical. But anyway, I'm not saying you should walk around kissing everybody and somebody else's wife either. I don't recommend you do that. It's not quite going to work in our today. I'll punch you if you try to do that to my husband, and I'll repent later. That's called a knee-jerk reaction. Don't you touch my husband's chest. It's beautiful. Anyway, he's got bigger than I do. It's so wonderful. Anyway. And they're exactly where they belong, where I needed a little help. Wires, surgery, whatever it takes. Anyway, I'm telling you way too much. I'm sweating. So anyhow, so as I'm reading this book, and here's this guy, Daniel, it says he was good looking. I'm like, wow, that's strange, and obviously was important. He was a super healthy guy, super fit, picked for a role to be a political advisor for a wicked king. A king that didn't serve the same God that he did, but a king that served up all these other gods. And I'm sitting there going, whoa, dude. So his job was managing people who practice witchcraft. That doesn't float in the church I go to today. If I manage people who like read tarot cards, read horoscopes, like my job was to print the horoscopes. My job was to manage all the palm readers. My job is to manage all the sage burners. Shoot, man, I'd be ostracized from that church. But thank God Daniel didn't go to church. Neither did Abraham or Noah. None of them went to church. There wasn't one. There wasn't one. It didn't exist. And they were not Christians. Thank you very much. Christian doesn't even exist in the Bible. That word is nowhere in the Bible at all. Nope. It's a modern, it was about 1,000 years after Jesus that word was popularized. And that it became a separate religion from the Bible. It's a totally separate religion from the Bible. We'll talk about that another time. I'm ruffling all kinds of wonderful feathers. I'm just batting thousands. This is good. Giving people a lot to Facebook about, a lot to tweet about, giving people a lot to Instagram about this strange woman that was naked in the parking lot at her job, cussing in a church. Perfect. I was practicing Noah. Thank you. Except for I was awake. was totally passed out. Anyway, I'm digressing. So anyhow, so as I read this thing cover to cover, I found that what I was learning in the building was very different than what was in the book. And that very quickly had me go, oh no, I don't think I'm supposed to go to that school of mercy thingy, cemetery thing, that I don't need to go do that. But here what I saw is that each one of these business people had a message in their mouth, lived with their God in the marketplace and in their home. They took their God with them everywhere versus only on Sunday, showing up with him on Sunday in some place and then leaving him there when they left there, because they would fight like cats and dogs, like Hans and I used to, cussing each other out on the way home from church. I know this all must be way too real for you, but we are going to talk about the Bible. I am talking about the Bible. So when I saw that, I had felt so useless in church for so many years, and I was very confused until I found that we got it kind of backwards, and you discover that when you're reading the book. And so I didn't go in that direction, but my heart's desire was to share my faith and to share my God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, the God of Israel, with anybody that I would come in contact with. And I've been doing that for decades now. I can't help myself. I can't help but tell the truth that I'm nothing without him, that he saved me, he rescued me, that when I was homeless and offering my body for a line of cocaine, he spoke to me and told me to pick up my mat and walk. That he, the high and lofty one, reached to me there, versus what the church that I would go to would say is you have to be perfect in order for God to talk to you. No, you got to be a mess in order for God to talk to you. You got to be a mess. You got to be real with your mess in order for him to talk to you. That's what I see throughout this whole thing, is messy people that love him, that are searching for him and searching for truth and doing their best to live according to what he tells us to live by, so that we'll have a blessed life and that we'll be sustained through the storms of life. So God is in the marketplace. He's in your job. He's at your home, in your car with you. Talk to him. He's involved in your everyday life, regardless if you acknowledge him or not. He's surrounding you right this very minute. Whether you acknowledge him or not, his presence is here. His love is here. His mercy has been offered to you over and over and over and over and over and over again, and will continue to be offered to you. So if you want to serve God and you're a school teacher, that doesn't mean that according to popular consensus, that you're supposed to quit your public school paycheck and go work for a private Christian school and starve to death with no benefits and no insurance. You're serving him in your job. You're serving him in your job, in all your work. Colossians 3:23 says that whatever your hands can find, do it with all your might and do it as unto him. It doesn't say do it in a church. It doesn't say do it in a Christian environment, a Christian school. No, all the more. Where did God take Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Straight into a place where no one believed in the God of Israel. On purpose. But our culture has completely been manipulated us into believing that you're not serving God if you're not working for a Christian company or a Christian organization. And that's all BS, and none of that is biblical. None of that is biblical. So you're serving him as a plumber, you're serving him as a contractor, you're serving him as a financial advisor, you're serving him as an IT contractor, you're serving him as a farmer, you're serving him as whatever it is that you do. You're the Abraham and the Sarah of today. You're the Daniel of today, the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego of today. You're the Noah of today. Kind of put down the bottle. It might be good. Do you understand? But that's who all of us are today, the Deborahs of today. The Esthers of today, that's who we are. That's our call, that's what we're supposed to be, and that's what we're supposed to do. And so if anyone's ever made you feel like you're useless because you don't have a high calling of the fivefold ministry, please, those people didn't walk around with business cards, but they seem to think who they think they are walk around with business cards today. There's not a corner on the market of the holy and the special and the isolated and the super intergalactic. We're all sons of the living God and daughters of the living God, all called by his name. He has planted a call inside of every single one of his children, and that call is teshuva, return back to me. You're my child. I've planted desires in you, he says in that. I know you. I've planted ability in you. I've planted you in the place that you're at. That's what he does. I put you, the past that you have was by design, not accident. All the consequences in which your life has been teaching you is by design, not by an accident. Every ounce of it is a purpose, including all of my failures with tequila. It helps someone in here feel better about themselves tonight. How many of you have not done that before? See, you're so much better than I was. See? How many of you just after today, especially this morning and this afternoon, of all of my wonderful confessions, of all of my failures, you feel so much better about yourself? Either you were as bad as I was and am, and or you're not as bad. So you're just like, I'm good. If that woman could dig herself out of that pit, and if God loved her, then he can do it for me too. And if you're not as bad as I was, you're like, shoot, man, I got one heck of a head start. I don't have to dig through all that caca that she's had to dig through. So turn in the book I told you to bring tonight, 2 Kings chapter 22. And what we're going to do is we're going to study an amazing leader that came from a crappy family. Really, really crappy family. Now, we're talking about, first of all, I want to introduce you to my favorite version of this book. My favorite version is called Scriptures, and it's by Institute of Scripture Research. Institute for Scripture Research. It's ISR. It was done in 2009. I think there's been a revision since then. But this is an amazing, amazing book. And the reason why I love it so much is that they left God's name in the Bible, and they left it there in Hebrew, and they also left all the Hebrew names in Hebrew. So all the names of the cities, the towns, the rivers, it's all in Hebrew, and all the names of the people are actually in Hebrew. To me, what it's done for me personally, it's helped me to connect to the fact that this is not an American book. So because the names are foreign, it helps me to connect to the fact that this is a book from Israel. It's a book from the Middle East that has an Eastern mindset, not a Western microwave drive-through mindset. Do you understand? So it really helps me in that. Not only that, but one of the 10 Commandments says, do not leave God's name to nothing. He says, do not make my name nothing. Do not bring my name to naught is literally what the translation of that says. And what we did in all of our translations is we took God's name out and we gave him a title, God or Lord. So wherever it says God and Lord in your versions of your Bibles, it actually is showing the name of God, the name that's supposed to be spoken. Even the Jews, long ago, long after this was being popularized, and before it was all canonized by the Catholics, the Jews stopped saying his name in fear of making a mistake, and a lot of their issues is trying not to make a mistake. Why? They've had a hard time. They've had a really hard time, and they're really careful right now. We don't want to screw up. So they've made some extra rules and some extra laws through the years. But lots of people said his name throughout this book, and you can see it because it's written in here so many times, and it's so amazing, and it's beautiful. And he has a name, and to me, it personified him for me. I think that's not the correct thing to say there, but it made him more real to me. He has a name. He likes to hear his name. His name is greater than all names. His name is above all names. His name is Yahweh. That's his name. His son's name is Yeshua, who was born in Israel, not California. Jesus is not from California. That might be his California name or his U.S. name and his England name, but his name is Yeshua, which means salvation. Can you say the name with me, Yeshua? That's his name. He was born in Israel. He is a Jew, and that's his name. So can you say the name again? Yeshua, awesome. And the Hebrew name, God's name is also Hebrew, Yahweh. I am who I am, that's what it means. I am the self-existent one. That's what it means. So I love calling upon his name. David called upon his name. Moses called upon his name. Abraham called upon his name. It's a beautiful name. Okay, so in 2 Kings, which by the way, it's right here. And by the way, it took me years to find stuff in this book. It really did. Again, you have to take the dyslexic, right, to a book that's from the Middle East. Have fun. Anyway, but I really hungered and thirsted for truth. I really did. So I used my table of contents a lot. I was totally embarrassed in church. And the pastor would say, turn to whatever. I'm like, and I'd get there and he'd say, turn to something else. So I get over there, he's already done reading, right? And they go, now turn over to, I'm like, and then he'd say, turn to something else. Like, I was lost most of the time, every single time that I went to church. It was a joke. But that's not the case anymore, which is awesome. You can get better at studying things. All right, so we're going to start chapter 2. We'll go ahead and start right at the top, and then we're going to digress to chapter 1 for just a minute to give us a little bit of context, okay? So in my book, it says Yoshiyahu. What does your book say? Chapter 22. Yep. 2 Kings, chapter 22. Josiah is what you're, by the way, the Hebrew alphabet does not have the letter J. The letter J does not exist in Hebrew at all. I am not joking with you. There's no J. I know the Hebrew alphabet. I know a little bit of Hebrew, and I can read some of it. Yoshiyahu was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 31 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Yedidah, the daughter of Adaiah and Botzkath. All right, so there we have it. 8 years old, and he became king. How many of you think that would suck for everybody? I have an 8-year-old grandson. His name is Landon. I have an 8-year-old grandson. I had 8-year-old boys that I raised. Imagining one of them becoming king at the 8 years old is very terrifying. Just terrifying. How many of you think you becoming king at any age would be terrifying? Right? Okay, so he's 8 years old and he becomes king. Let's now backtrack up to 21 verse 19. And I'll have somebody else read that. Somebody else pull up, go back one chapter, 21, verse 19. Who has it? Take it away, handsome. Yes.
Ammon was 22 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 2 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Meshullemeth,
nice.
The daughter of Harus of Jotbah. And he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, as Manasseh his father had done. He walked in all the way in which his father walked, and served the idols that his father served, and worshipped them. He abandoned the Lord, the God of his fathers, and did not walk in the way of the Lord. And the servants of Ammon conspired against him, and put the king to death in his house. But the people of the land struck down all those who had conspired against King Ammon, and the people of the land made Josiah his son king in his place. Now the rest of the acts of Ammon that he did, they are not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah. Are they not? Wrong emphasis. Are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah? And he was buried in his tomb in the garden of Uzzah, and Josiah his son reigned in his place.
Wow. So look at this. Who was Yoshiyahu's father? Ammon was his dad. And what did it just say that his dad did? Evil in the eyes of God. He worshiped foreign gods. He led the people to worship foreign gods. He walked away from his God. He's a king of Israel. And he walked away from the God of Israel. And he's worshiping all these other foreign gods. So people collaborated. His father was murdered. So his father walked in wickedness. His father was murdered. You're 8 years old, and this is what you see. What a perfect family. Isn't that amazing? That's a mess. How many thought your family was bad? How many of your family ain't that bad? Not that bad. I know that some of you have had some murders in your family, but most of us have not had a murder in our family. So that's the backdrop for this 8-year-old king. So here he has this example of his father, okay? And now he's 8 and he is the one that's supposed to reign. Wow. How's that going to work out? Let's find out. Yoshiyahu, I already said that, so let's go to verse 2. And he did what was right in the eyes of Yahweh and walked in all the ways of his father David and did not turn aside right or left. Wait, what? No, I thought his father was who? Ammon. Yes. You see, if you're going to walk in wickedness, you're going to pick the kings, and that's going to be your father. And or it now states that King David, who is the apple of God's eye, that he walked in the ways of King David, who was a king who did his very best to walk humbly before his God, did his very best to serve the people from the right place, failed a lot, but his heart was right. Made lots of mistakes, but his heart and the intention of his heart was right. And he had a heart after God, and that's what made him righteous, because he had a heart for God. That's what made him right and right standing with God. And it came to be in the 18th year of the sovereign Yoshiyahu, so 18 years reigning, that the sovereign sent Shaphan, the scribe, son of Atzalyahu, son of Meshulam, to the house of Yahweh, saying, Go up to Hilkiyahu the high priest, and let him weigh the silver which has been brought into the house of Yahweh, which the doorkeepers have gathered from the people. And let them give it into the hand of those doing the work, who are overseers of the house of Yahweh, and let them give it to those who are in the house of Yahweh doing the work, to strengthen the breach of the house, to the carpenters, to the builders and the stonemasons, to buy timber and hewn stone and strengthen the house. It doesn't say give it to the speakers. You know why? Because there wasn't any speakers. There were no motivational speakers with the title pastor in this time. The priests, you could laugh that little chuckle one more time. She went, huh, uh-huh, yeah. Anyway, however, let not the silver given into their hand be reckoned with them, for they are acting trustworthy. And Hilkiyahu the high priest said to Shaphan the scribe, I have found the book of the Torah in the house of Yahweh. And Hilkiyahu gave the book to Shaphan, and he read it. So the Torah, the first 5 books of your Bible, the foundation of our world, the foundation of our judicial system, the part of the book that teaches us exactly how to live a blessed life and how to sustain the storms of life, had been lost for a long, long, long time. How? Well, did Yoshiyahu's dad read it? Obviously not. He didn't even know about it. This young kid, who now is 18 plus 8, 36, he's 26? He's 26, how's my math? Anyway, so this 26-year-old king, that's crazy. This 26-year-old king had never heard of the Torah. Never heard of it. So here the high priest, who's the high priest, hello, obviously isn't obeying the Torah. He's like, what? You found what? Oh, I found something. Take the dust off of these scrolls. And he brings it to the high priest. The high priest reads it. The high priest then brings it to Yoshiyahu. Now imagine a culture that people are worshiping other gods. They would set up these pillars on top of hills. They were called high places. They would go to a high place and they would set up a pillar, and there would be like a pole. Sometimes it'd be an Asherah pole. Asherah, also called Ashtoreth, Estar, which is where we get our Easter celebration from. Estar, English, Easter. And the way they worshiped this goddess, she's a fertility goddess. You can only imagine, how would you worship a fertility goddess? Well, they would bring her offerings. Bunnies, eggs, both represented fertility. Bunnies and eggs, the same thing that was at your church last spring. Yep, same thing that was at your church last spring. Same thing. The same goddess is being worshiped today. Still today. And people refuse to give something like that up. No, and that's not. No, it is. It's been worshiped the same way. So they would have these pillars, the Ashtoreth. They would go, they would bow down, they would bring sacrifices. There was another god called Molech. They would sacrifice their children before the god of Molech so that they would prosper. It was a prosperity god. There was Baal, who was the male version of the fertility god, Baal. He was a bull. The way they put him together was a bull. I've actually seen one of these idols from thousands of years ago with my own eyes, like closer than I am to you. There is Baal, and it's a bull. The bull, the male version of the fertility god. So they bring sacrifices, blood sacrifices, gifts and offerings to these false gods, bowing down to these false gods, hoping to be prospered. So for Baal, it'd be about money, prosper my fields, prosper my flock, so I can be rich. Fertility goddess, same thing. Which flavor do you want? Worship both of them. So I want you to imagine there's all these mountaintops, all these hilltops, there's these places where people are bringing offerings to these gods and worshiping them. And here, this young 26-year-old hears from one of his employees that they have found a book, the Torah. They bring it out. He asks them to read it to him. He is wrecked. 26-year-old kid, he is wrecked and he's terrified. And he says, this has to be read to the entire community of Israel. And we have to change our ways. We cannot continue to not obey the God of Israel. What? Think about it. He came completely against the culture, completely against the status quo, completely pulled out of what his father left behind and said, I am not going to live like that, and neither will the people that I'm leading. Let's keep reading. My question to you is, do you have balls that big? I like the way you sound, Chris. Why don't you go ahead and keep going? Pick up where I left off.
Where'd you leave off?
I left off, you could start at verse 9.
And Shaphan, the secretary, came to the king and reported to the king, your servants have emptied out the money that was found in the house and have delivered it into the hand of the workmen who have the oversight of the house of the Lord. And Shaphan, the secretary, told the king, Hilkiah, the priest, has given me a book. And Shaphan read it before the king. When the king heard the words of the book of the law, he tore his clothes. And the king commanded Hilkiah the priest, and Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, and Achbor, the son of Micaiah, and Shaphan the secretary, and Asaiah, the king's servant, saying, Go, inquire of the Lord for me, and for the people, and for all Judah, concerning the words of this book that has been found. For great is the wrath of the Lord that is kindled against us, because our fathers have not obeyed the words of this book to do according to all that is written concerning us. So Hilkiah the priest and Ahikam and Achbor and Shaphan and Asaiah went to Huldah the prophetess, the wife of Shallum, the son of Tikvah, son of Harhas, keeper of the wardrobe. Now she lived in Jerusalem just to have fun in the second quarter. And they talked with her. And she said to them, thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, tell the man who sent you to me, thus says the Lord, behold, I will bring disaster upon this place and upon its inhabitants. All the words of the book that the king of Judah has read, because they have forsaken me and have made offerings to other gods, that they might provoke me to anger with all the work of their hands. Therefore my wrath will be kindled against this place, and it will not be quenched. But to the king of Judah, who sent you to inquire of the Lord, thus shall you say to him, thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, regarding the words that you have heard, because your heart was penitent, and you humbled yourself before the Lord, when you heard how I spoke against this place and against its inhabitants, that they should become a desolation and a curse, and you have torn your clothes and wept before me, I also have heard you, declares the Lord. Therefore, behold, I will gather you to your fathers, and you shall be gathered to your grave in peace, and your eyes shall not see all the disaster that I will bring upon this place. And they brought back word to the king.
Okay, so let's pull this apart. What do you see changes a destiny? A repentant heart. A repentant heart changes a destiny. God had been speaking to his father and the fathers before them over and over again, sending messengers telling them, turn, stop, return back to me. Stop worshiping these false gods. Now, hear what I can see on your faces right now for most of you. You're like, Dani, this doesn't apply to us. I mean, we don't make sacrifices anymore. We don't worship false gods. Gosh. Really? Remember the pillars I was talking about? These were images that they made with their own hands. Or they would hire an iron worker to make one out of iron, a stone worker to make one out of stone. Does anyone have stone or iron in their house? You see, the same idol worship, idolatry, is happening in today's world that happened then. Exactly the same. People are passing their children through the god of Molech every day. They are. For what? To prosper. Very few homes today have mom home nurturing her children. Very few. Why? Well, because we can't make ends meet. No, that's not true. It's because you want more means. You want more stuff. You're chasing significance. You're chasing a nicer car. You're chasing a bigger house. You're chasing more stuff and more clothes and shopping. You're chasing violin lessons and basketball and all of this extra stuff so that you could look good as a parent, so you can find significance. So we're sacrificing our children in a system where somebody else is raising them. They're not being nurtured with your values. Well, maybe they are. They're being traded for stuff. We live in a culture that values prosperity more than it values family. I'm going to say that again. We live in a culture that values prosperity more than it values family. Our culture is doing everything it can to rip families apart, and it's happening every single day. We are spilling innocent blood, just like they were there. Spilling children's blood. 3,700 babies died today. 3,700 in the United States of America alone. Abortions, innocent blood being spilled because of it's not convenient, it's not the right time. Do you understand what I'm saying? We do the same exact thing. It just has a different look, but it's the same exact thing. We worship our houses and our cars. We worship human beings. We hang on every word of someone that we think is important, but won't listen to our spouse or our children. This is idolatry. We also have different forms of idolatry. Now listen, your parents left you an environment and a culture. Our past presidents left us a culture, left us values. And there are pillars that are in your life that you got from the generation that was before you. And those pillars you're going to hand down to your children as they were handed down to you. Just as Yoshiyahu was handed Molech, Baal, Ashtoreth. And every Easter you're handing your kid the worship of Estar still. Even worshiping the sun god December 25th of this year, just like you did last year and the year before and the year before and the year before. That's the sun god. It's an Egyptian god. Jesus was not born on December 25th. First of all, he wasn't born on a Gregorian calendar. He was born in Israel on a Hebrew calendar. That calendar has less days than the Gregorian calendar. It's clear that he wasn't born in December. Anyone that's done any bit of study can see clearly that he wasn't born in December. But the sun god was born in December, on December 25th, and they would erect a tree and they would decorate it and they would put light on it. That's how they worshiped that God. During Jeremiah's time, Jeremiah would say, God spoke to Jeremiah and he said, you go and you worship Baal, you go and you worship Ashtoreth, and then you come into my temple and you think you're safe. You are not safe. You have to pick who you're going to serve. Is it going to be me or is it going to be the gods of the land? So what are the gods of our land? The same prosperity God is here. Same one. How many of you have debt? Not going to ask you why. It's the God of more. It's the God of more. Never satisfied. According to the Bible, greed is never being satisfied. That's the definition of greed. And also according to the Bible, greed is idolatry. It is greed that has driven us into debt. No, Dani, it was my medical problem. No, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. If you actually look for the full picture of your life, and you look at the choices that you made with your body and how much you overworked yourself and reduced your immune system to fight the free radicals that are out there because of all the stress and all the pressure, because I wanted more. And when you got the house, you still weren't satisfied. When you got the raise, you still weren't satisfied. When you got the new clothes, you still weren't satisfied. When you got the new wife or the new husband, you still were not satisfied. Always dissatisfied. Never content in spirit, but always striving and sacrificing important relationships, the most important relationship, the relationship between you and your God. Even the things that we have done to be able to earn more, to earn a higher position, to earn a title. So there were pillars that were here before you were born. And your parents bowed to these pillars. Let me show you some other gods that you might not even be aware of. How about the God of fear? You know there is a God of fear. Yeah, is there anybody here of the old Hindu religion? Does anyone know what No, honey, they worship 35,000 different gods. And there is a God of fear, and there's a God of wrath, and there's a goddess named Lakshmi. She's the goddess of health and wealth. How do they worship these gods? Well, some with sacrifices, and some with giving, and some with praying to those gods. So the God of fear, it's a real thing. Well, how do you know if you're worshiping the God of fear? How do you give your sacrifice of fear to the God of fear? By walking in fear. Even though it says in that book over 300 times, do not be afraid. Be of good courage. Do not be afraid. Do not fear. But yet, so many times, we bow down to the God of fear. Dani, I'm so afraid of what people think of me. I'm so afraid of failing. I'm afraid of what happens if I make a mistake. So instead, we're going to play some video games. We're going to watch some movies. We're going to eat some takeout. Being financially irresponsible. We're going to medicate through drugs or alcohol or food. Not walking with him who says, be of good courage. I am with you. So what pillars have been handed down to you? The pillars that were handed down to me was drugs, alcohol, sex with anyone, anywhere, anytime. Those were the pillars that were handed down to me. Lying, cheating, stealing. Those were the pillars that were handed down to me. And I made sacrifices to those gods every single time I did any of those acts. Violence, anger, those were the pillars, those were the gods that were handed to me. Like, Dani, how could you say anger being a god? Oh, because I can. There is one in India. You see, the idolatry of the United States of America, is much more deceptive than the idolatry in India. Much more deceptive. And much more powerful. We've given ourselves over to the prosperity gospels and the prosperity gods. We've given ourselves over also to the God of grace. Yeah, a false grace. That I can continue to live the life I'm living and get away with it. All I have to do is say, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. According to that book, that ain't true. That ain't true at all. You got a whole new thing coming to you. Intentionally doing something you know is wrong on purpose. And thinking all you have to do is repent later? Our hearts are what he looks at. The intention of our heart. We can't continue on the same path, worshiping false gods and expect to be blessed by him. So what pillars, what false gods were given to you? There's all kinds of them in our country. What about the health god? Oh, yeah. Oh, there's a health god out there for sure. The phone god. Yeah. I want you to think about it. Let's just look at our phones for a moment. Okay, first of all addictions are a form of idolatry. Every addiction. Food addictions, phone addictions, gaming addictions, entertainment addictions, alcohol, drugs, you name it. They're all idolatry. How? It's the thing that you think about all the time. It's the thing that you turn to when you're in trouble. It's the thing you turn to when you're stressed. It's the thing you turn to help relieve yourself. Porn addictions, sex addictions, anything that has exalted itself higher than God in your life is a form of idolatry. All of it. And then we expect to be blessed, even though we keep bowing down to the God of fear, bowing down to our phone, bowing down to the impulses, bowing down to our cravings, letting our lives be led by all of those things instead of being led by the lover of our soul, who desires what? We see it right there where he says, what does he say? Because you tore your clothes, because your heart was wrecked, you will not suffer what is coming due to them. You're like, what a mean God. No. He actually doesn't even have to do anything. It's just consequences for their actions. That generation sowed wickedness, unfaithfulness, idolatry, greed, immorality. It sowed passing their children, sacrificing their kids. That generation did all that. And the sins of the father will visit the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate him. Well, that's just a mean God. No, it's called consequences. And it's a way of saving a generation. It's a way of the messenger, them getting the message and saying, I don't want what my dad had. I don't want the life that they lived. I want something different. Please help me. And as soon as we turn away from that life, then he gives us the chance for a brand new life. And that's exactly what he gave this 26-year-old. He's not asking for us to be perfect. He's asking for humility, the humility of our heart. He's asking for us to be sober in our mind and to listen to the gentle messenger and to say, okay, I'm off track. Wow, I really screwed that up. That we don't live by our selfish ways, but that we start to yearn to know him, to walk with him, and allow him to change what's inside of us and work in us good character. So the consequences of our parents have been passed down to us. How is that? Well, see, what did I learn from my parents? What did you learn from yours? I learned violence, right? That's what I learned. So that's what I learned. So that's what I would become unless what? Something changed. I didn't change by myself, but I was a part of my change. Does that make sense? I had my part in the change in my life. And it took humbling myself before my God, crying out to him, saying, okay, I'm done. I can't do this. Help. And confessing my sin, asking for forgiveness, and turning away from tequila. Needed to see if you were awake. Do you understand? Yeah, she agrees with me on tequila. Turning away from the things that were tripping me, turning away. Like, for example, fear had me so controlled. And I had to set myself up to say, I am not listening to that voice anymore. I'm going to choose faith. How many of you battle with fear? Number one, stop giving an offering to fear every day throughout the day. Stop giving your offering to fear. Every single time you believe that voice, listen to that voice, you are giving an offering to a false god. It's time to repent. What does repent mean? The word itself is actually teshuvah. It means return back to him. That means step away from fear and go in the opposite direction. Well, let me tell you this little trick that I learned long time ago. Whenever I would get pounded with fear and I'd be hearing this message, you can't do that, you shouldn't do that. No, you're nothing, you can't do that, it's never gonna work, you're totally gonna fail. Then all of a sudden I would get this revelation. Hold on a second. This voice is trying to stop me from something good. This voice is trying to stop me from something good. Listen to me. This voice is trying to stop me from something good. So guess what I did? I pressed right into the fear. All right, buddy, let's go. Let's go right now. Let me see what you got. I'm going to do it no matter what. Bam. And guess what happened? Boom. My life was so blessed. Rather than shrinking back, pushing back, I pushed into my fears. Pressed into the scariest stuff. I pressed into getting on this stage. I pressed into opening that book in front of you, judgmental people that today confessed your judgment. Now I'm in front of you. Awesome. Do you understand? People picking me apart. Where's your theology degree? I'll tell you where it is. It's in life. It's in that book. Abraham didn't have one. John the Baptist he didn't go to school of ministry. Guy was a full-on hippie, hugging trees, eating bugs and honey. I identify with that dude. And he was rude with his mouth, especially to leaders. Really rude. He cussed them out several times in their language, in their time. You brood of vipers. I was like, you MFer. It is. That's how foul that was. You MFer. That's what he said. Read the book. It's really awesome. It's funny too. I laugh a lot in there and cry. So here's what I'm saying. Is that whatever fear it is that you keep bowing down to, you see, fear wants to stop you. I say press into it. I say press into it. I say press into it. Whatever it is. Afraid of making a mistake? Let's do it. Let's do it. So what? How many have ever made a mistake before? Are you going to make another one? Yep. Okay, so please tell me, where does the fear of making a mistake come from? Pride. It comes from pride. The fear of making a mistake is rooted in pride. You don't want to look stupid to anybody. You don't want to be embarrassed. That's straight up pride. That's straight up arrogance. You're going to make a mistake. Get good at making mistakes. Be open about your mistakes. How many of you are already good at mistakes? Awesome, you're on the right track. You're on the right track. Now, I'm not saying go make a wicked mistake, like you're married, go jump into bed with somebody else. That's stupid. You don't have to pray about that, whether or not you should do that. You already know what the answer is. No, hell no. Idiot, don't do that. And some of us have, me being one of them. So that book is our guide, but if we're bowing down to a false god, we can't hear that voice. If we're bowing down to a false god, we can't hear the voice of truth. We can't hear the voice of freedom. All we hear is the voice of bondage. That's it. The voice of your past is the voice of bondage. If you're bowing down to the voice of your past, and by the way, many of you have made your past your God. You've made your past your God. That's the God you're bowing down to. Rehearsing your past, reminding other people of their past, remembering it over and over again and not walking freely from it, not creating a new future. He says, I know the plans that I have for you, plans to prosper you, plans of good health, plans to prosper your children's children's children. If you would just listen to me, that's what he says. So what will you choose? Him or the gods of your fathers and the gods of your mothers? The God of your past, the God of fear, the God of prosperity. Or will you follow Imeth Echad Elohim? Imeth Echad Elohim, the one true God. The one true God. Follow him, you'll have a totally different life. Follow the gods that you've been serving, you get the same life. So I don't know who your God is. But I'll tell you, I know who mine is. I know who mine is. He is faithful, he is compassionate, he is kind. If you have a repentant heart. If you do not, just go like this. Ow. I've had a bruised butt. I've had a butt on fire. I have many times. Why? My neck was really stiff. My brain was stubborn. My soil was hard. He tilled it for me. How do you get tilled? You get tilled by other people. You get tilled by other people. Yeah. The embezzlement, what was that? That was some tilling of my hard-headed soil. My husband cheating 30 days after, what was that? That was some tilling of my hard-headed soil. Being embezzled by the millionaire that I had learned from, that was tilling of my hard-headed soil. My heart attack at 24, tilling of my hard-headed soil. The bookkeeper running off with the money, the tilling of the hard-headed soil. What about you? Gentle messenger, harsh one, which one will you take? So a repentant heart is the one that he's after. That's the one he answers the cry of. That's the one that he hears the prayers of. That's what it says, is a repentant heart. Hardened heart gets the belt. Soft, pliable, broken heart gets the blessing. He says, I exalt the humble and I tear down the proud. Which category are you in? Which God are you serving? Which pillars were passed down to you? And do you have the cojones to do what an 8-year-old did? Do you have the cojones to do what an 8-year-old king did? Do you have it? That when he heard it at 26, he said, no more. We're done. And guess what he did? He tore down all the high places in the land. He tore them all down. He had that book read before everybody, and guess what everybody did? They tore their clothes. They threw ashes over their head. They tore their beards. begging for forgiveness. Please forgive us. We have sinned against you. Not, my dad screwed up and he taught me how to screw up. Oh, no, no, no. That is not a repentant heart. That's not a repentant heart. Blaming your parents, blaming the generation before you, blaming the culture, blaming the president, blaming the IRS, blaming anybody. That is not a repentant heart. Forgive us. Sometimes I wish that was still in our culture. Tearing your clothes, pulling out your hair, throwing ashes on your head. Forgive us. We deserve to die. Please have mercy on us. Please have mercy on us. There's a lot of cheap grace out there, which is keeping us a mess. And I think it's a whole nother God that's been formed in our churches that has us living lives that are just really far from where we should be. And again, I'm not talking about perfect. The word perfect in the Bible means complete. Complete means what? You've messed up, your heart gets softened, and you say, please forgive me. That is complete. And you turn away from what you're doing, and you start going in the opposite direction. You start doing what you know you're supposed to do. I started this morning with that statement. I started this morning with the statement of what? How many of you know better? You know better. You know better. You know better. So what will make you turn and walk in the better? What will make you do that? Who's in charge of going towards the better? I'm in charge of me going to the better. You're in charge of going to the better. Can we do it? Yes, we can. But Dani, I'm so weak. That's perfect. It's perfect that you're weak. And it's perfect that you don't think that you can. Because he promises that with that repentant heart, that you ask him to help you. He says, done deal. Done deal. And now it's about forming a daily relationship because of our weakness. God, I need you today. When you feel the temptation to go towards the bottle or the pornography or gaming too much and wasting time, when you feel, and again, I'm talking about all the excess of it all. When you know, how many of you know that you're on your phone too much? There's like 250 honest people in the room. When you know that you think about business too much, you think about money too much, money's become your God. When you think about others from the wrong perspective too much, like what's everybody else doing? Checking out and spying on everybody else's life. Caring more about what your friends and family say about you than trying to learn and understand what he says about you. I have an affectionate term for Google. It's Rabbi Google. Google. It's kind of a joke, but it kind of isn't. Do you realize that we live in a day and age where we do not allow questions to be unanswered? Do you realize that we live in a day and age that we do not allow questions to go unanswered? You have a random question. What do? You ask Rabbi Google. You don't ask God. You don't go searching in the book. You have a random, senseless question. What are some of the random, senseless things you've asked Rabbi Google? How many ounces are in a liter? Thank you so much. How many ounces are in a liter? How many of you ask Rabbi Google a lot of questions? Come on, be honest. Wow, look, I'm not the only one. Do you realize where your time is going? Your time is going and learning things that are useless and senseless. And why do we want the answers to those questions? Huh? To be right. To know something. To be smart. So we don't have to do what we're supposed to be doing. You said it, girlfriend. So we don't have to do what we're supposed to be doing. We have completely replaced God's voice with a computer. With a computer. The computer that fits in your pocket. We've completely ignored his voice. But who we turn to and what we turn to is a voice. It's the information God. It's the information God. Is your God YouTube? YouTube videos? And you want to hear his voice. But you got to shut off those other voices. And quit reaching for senseless knowledge. And do what Abraham and Isaac, Jacob, Daniel, Peter, Paul, Yeshua, all of those prophets, Jeremiah, Isaiah, all of those guys that God spoke to and through, that brought changes in nations. They were elevated. They were exalted. Their words are still being spoken to this day. I just spoke some of them. Because why? They spent time asking and listening. They refused to bow down to the gods of their time. I just exposed to you the gods of our time, where people sacrifice family for stuff. Prosperity God. Where people shrink back because of the fear of man, which the Bible says the fear of man will prove to be a snare. Don't bow down to man. Bow down to the living God. And every day that you're afraid to do the work that you're supposed to do, afraid to have the conversations you're supposed to have, is every day you're making an offering to the God of fear of man. Every day. Every day that you're afraid of making a mistake, making the wrong offering to the wrong God. Do not be afraid, he says. I got your back. I got you covered. Listen to me. I will lead you. I will guide you. I will direct you. I will govern you. I will bless you. He led Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, 3 cool young kids, somewhere around their 20s, into a foreign land where they did nothing besides worship false gods. And these kids refused to worship the gods of that land. They refused. They stood strong for the God of Israel. And you know what the king did? He threw them in a fiery furnace. He threw them in a furnace. He turned up the heat, turned up the heat, turned up the heat. And what happened? Nothing. Not a hair on their head, not a hair on their arm. The only thing that was burned off of them were the ropes that bound them. That's it. That's what happens when you let your God, the one true God, Imeth Echad Elohim, when you let the one true God lead you into the life that he has for you. Versus the life that our current culture is feeding you every single day. Every single day being marketed to. Do you realize that you're being marketed to so much more than you were being marketed to 20 years ago? You know that phone that they sold us? It's nothing but a marketing device. All day, every day. Swipe to buy. One click to buy. And we don't know where all our money is going. We're buying more of what we already have because we are not satisfied. Prosperity God. Guess what? The God of Israel, the creator of the heavens and the earth, that God who sent his son, Yeshua, that God He is the satisfier of your soul. He is the satisfier of your soul. No phone, no junk, no food can satisfy you the way his Spirit will satisfy you. So do you have the cojones to walk away from the gods of our time and the gods of our land, to walk with the one true God or not? Let me tell you something else about this God, the God of Israel, the creator of the heavens and the earth. He has 7 billion contacts. He does. He has 7 billion contacts. It's amazing and powerful. And he makes a promise that if you will hold up my name high, I will draw men unto myself. If you hold my name up high, I will draw men unto myself. You're holding up his name high, he draws men unto himself where you are standing. He says that if you will follow him, that he will provide for you abundantly, more than anything you could ever imagine. That's what that says. But somebody along the way said, no, you better not believe that, because what if it doesn't happen? It's wrong to believe something like that. Well, you have fun worshiping your fear God, and I'm going to trust in the one true God. I'm going to trust in the creator of the heavens and the earth. I'm going to trust that he is true. I don't know who your God is, but all of our hopelessness, that we then make a sacrifice to the God of hopelessness, the God of depression, the God of distraction, the God of confusion. I'm so confused. I don't know what to do. I'm so confused. Can you give me a confused look? Look something like this. I'm so confused. Confusion that leads to distraught. Why are we confused? Come on, talk to me. Why are we confused? Talk to me. Because we ain't listening to Emeth Echad Elohim, the one true God. We are not listening to his voice of direction, his voice of love, his voice of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. That's the only way we can be. I'm so confused. Why? Because you're listening to all these other false gods, the gods of our land, the gods of our time. My God brings hope to your hopelessness. My God brings clarity to your confusion. I don't know who your God is. I don't know what God you're serving, but my God brings healing to your bones and to your sickness. I don't know what God you're serving. The God I serve, he brings promotion for those who are faithful with the little, who humble themselves and do it his way, who bring honor into the marketplace, who put others first in the marketplace and at home. He blesses and exalts the ones that will humble themselves. I don't know who your God is, but my God prospers abundantly more when you don't make money your God. But I do know the money God. I know the money God really, really well. I had a long life with the money God, chasing the money God, worrying about paying my bills, being afraid that I wouldn't be able to afford it, buying. Every time I made more money, we spent more money. Then we spent more money than we actually made, which is how we went into debt. Those were all offerings to the prosperity God, the fertility God, the make me successful God. When I started to serve the one true God, he cleared up depression, hopelessness, and despair and confusion, and brought truth inside of my soul. Truth that shattered all the pain from my past and discovered who I was in him. No longer my identity being tied to money or how many people are in a room. No longer my identity tied to what title I have or what size my jeans are. That my identity is not tied to what you think or any other human thinks, but my identity soundly, firmly, solidly in him as his daughter, his child, who he chose to give life and to birth. That's who, and that's the one that I will be faithful to. That's the one that tonight I'm taking a risk by telling you about my God. I'm risking my entire business reputation talking to you like this. Why? Because I know who my protector is. Because I know who my protector is. I also know who my provider is, and it's not you. I know who my provider is. It's not you. But I know when I follow his ways, and I'm faithful to the one who is faithful to me, he provides for more than all of my needs. And he provides for my needs not according to my need, but according to his riches and his glory. That's what I know. That's what's in that book. That's what I believe, and that's what I cling to. Am I perfect at it? No, fool. I'm human like everybody else in this room. But I will tell you this, my nose is in that book a lot, and probably more than yours, and it might be time to put your nose in that book and your nose on the floor. Crying out to him and turning off all those other voices so you can hear the voice of truth. How many of you know that you have been listening to too many voices? When will it stop? I want you to write down the voices that you listen to. What voices have you been feeding and giving your ear to? What pillars have you been bowing down to? Write them down. Write them down. Is it records of wrong? Is it the God of your past? Is it greed? Is it addictions? Habits you know you shouldn't be playing around with, but choosing every day to? The God of resentment and bitterness? The God of rage? There's 35 million different gods, apparently, in today's world. 35 million of them. Most of them in India, apparently. It's crazy. Write them down. I've got mine written down. Is it the God of significance? You paying homage to make yourself more significant? Here's a good one. How about shame? Bowing down to the God of shame? Bowing down to the God of worthlessness? How about pain? Some of us have worshiped pain. We keep ourselves in pain. We hurt ourselves by the choices we make with what we put inside of our mouths. We hurt ourselves by not making healthy steps and heading in the right direction. We've gotten so used to pain that pain has become our God, and we wouldn't know how to live without it. And I'm not just talking about physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain. So then they introduce us to another God, pharmakia. Or if you're a naturalist, you got like 25 different vitamins that you're taking, that you've put all your hope and trust in. Yeah, put all your hope and trust in the oils, to the vitamins, to the shakes, the potions, the lotions, or the pharmakias. This book says, cursed is the man who puts his trust in his own strength. But blessed is the one who puts his hope in Yahweh. You bowing down to the God of resentment, hatred, malice, prejudice, rejection? Are those the gods you're serving? Those are the gods of our world today. They are the gods of our time. Nice. People pleasing. Yep. People pleasing. Is that the God you're serving? The people pleaser? Oh, I've bowed down to that one several times. Yeah, that's the one that you hide in. If you can make everybody happy, then you're a good person. You're not going to make everybody happy. That, again, is trying to make you feel significant. It's exalting yourself, building up pride. Yeah, procrastination, which is rooted in fear. Yeah. Procrastination is rooted in fear or your comfort zone, one or the other. You're comfortable, not content, just comfortable, comfortably lazy, and irresponsible. What about the God of overproducing? Overproducing, overworking, workaholic? Have you ever known one of those? Mm-hmm. My favorite ones are the ones at church. It's for the Lord. Which Lord are you serving? Because the one true God says, do not sacrifice your family. But your first ministry is your family. The God I serve has taken my insignificant self, has brought healing, took all of my low self-esteem and low self-worth and self-hatred, and he put love and compassion. I used to hate people. God, I used to hate people. I trusted nobody. I hated myself. But when he started to show through this amazing book how gracious and compassionate he was to people who made a lot of mistakes, how he chose broken people to use them as a light for all the world to see, that they would praise him when people saw the good works they would do. Friend, I spent years trying to change myself, and that was a crappy road. When I surrendered myself to him, as I continuously do, sometimes more than others, that's when he's brought changes inside of me and brings the changes in due time, in due season. Some changes came really slow. Others of them happened without me even knowing it. I'd be hearing somebody else talk about a struggle that they had. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I used to have that same problem. I don't have that problem anymore. And it wasn't even something that I asked or prayed for. It was just a bonus that he did. As we come before him with a broken heart, Father, forgive me. I've been serving other gods and I shouldn't have. Some of us worship ourselves, and we've built a kingdom of self, a kingdom of self-righteousness that we judge from our throne. And it's a lonely place. The God I serve makes the insignificant significant. No money, no position can do that. The God of Israel, Yahweh, who sent his son, Yeshua, as a blood sacrifice for all of our sin, that all of us would come to know him, Emeth Echad Elohim, the one true God. He, as I hand him my anger, my frustration, my pride, my ego, my resentment, my bitterness, in exchange, has given compassion, grace, and mercy. Does anyone want to follow that God? He's taken my poverty spirit and the sins of my poverty life, the sins of my poverty thinking, and all the consequences that it produced, and he completely flipped it around. And on a part-time basis, millions of dollars have come into our accounts. However, I just recently looked at a number. I was shocked. $25 million that we've given away. $25 million that have come through our hands that we've given away. What? A woman who was broke. A woman who was an inch away from becoming a prostitute. Who was an inch away from entering the porn industry. A woman who did cocaine and smoked weed and popped pills. Who was broke and homeless. That was selfish and greedy. That has given away millions and millions and millions of dollars. Come on. How does that happen? Took all of my poverty and all of my greed and totally flipped it upside down. Could you imagine writing checks for $100,000 to help starving children, freeing kids from the sex trade? Could you imagine being able to use your life to do good? Could you imagine living debt-free? That's what he's called all of us to. He said we're supposed to be the lender, not the borrower. Well, he didn't say that to condemn us. He said that to tell you to step up, rise up, and do something great with your life. I don't want you to be a slave to a lender. I don't want you to be a slave to a lender. I want you to have the means to lend to other people. Wow. That's what he's called us to. So the only reason why we're not there is why? We're serving the gods of our time and the gods of our land. So I'm done with this message. Question is, what will you do with it? Please don't be all self-righteous like you're at church and you don't want anyone to see that you've messed up. This is not that time. This is not that time. This was the gentle messenger. What will you do? If you know you have to make things right with him, get off your butt and get on your feet and cry out to him. I can't absolve your stuff. I can only make things right with him myself. But I can't do it for you. That's going to be you. It's going to be you. Right now, you're wrestling with ego and pride. Be careful. That if any part of tonight's message resonated with you, if any part of tonight's message touched something inside of you, this is when you press through ego. And you say, get out of my way, I got something to do. It's really simple. Just tell him. Tell him how you're feeling. Tell him what you see. Your eyes got opened of idolatry tonight. The idolatry of your heart. The idolatry of man, the idolatry of a culture. The idolatry of celebrities, the idolatry of authors, the idolatry of Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, the idolatry of YouTube, the idolatry of knowledge. Your eyes got opened. He opened your eyes to bring you into freedom, not to condemn you, but to bring you into freedom. There's another God that many of you have served, and it's the God called victim. The God called victim. Always in a victim position, not taking personal responsibility. That's the God that produces blame. Father, forgive me. Just say those words. Father, forgive me. For I've bowed down to the gods of my time, the gods of this age. Forgive me. That I've made sacrifices. If you don't know the words to say, just say what I'm saying. Forgive me for bringing sacrifices to the gods of fear. The fear of man. List the gods that you have bowed down to. He's the one that says, if you will humble your hearts and pray, then I will heal your land. I will heal your land. I will prosper your fields. He says that if you will love me with all of your heart, all of your soul, all of your mind, your mouth, your resources, if you will love me with everything that is in you, and you teach your children to do the same, that you talk about me while you're in your home and you're at the dinner table and you're walking along the street and you're driving in your car, if you'll keep me in the forefront of your mind and in your heart, then I will open up the heavens and bring a bounty upon you. I will prosper everything you do. That's his promise. If you have not been faithful to him, confess it. Say, Father, make me like Josiah. Give me the courage to tear down the pillars of my fathers and mothers, the pillars of poverty, a poverty mind and poverty habits. Forgive me for my mistakes concerning money. Forgive me for serving a poverty God, the God of greed. Father, forgive me for serving the God of pain and making it a part of my life. Forgive me for squandering my gifts and talents and giving them over to the God of fear. Father, forgive me for serving the pillars, the fertility goddess of Ashtoreth, with lust, lusting after every fleshly thing, lusting after foods, lusting after pleasures, more than I lust after you. Yearning for entertainment, the thousands of hours I have spent and submitting myself before the God of entertainment. Forgive me for wasting all of those hours, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of hours of media, upon thousands and thousands of hours of all forms of entertainment. Forgive me for what I've done with the allotment of time that you have given me. Father, forgive me for the thousands of hours that I have wasted bringing sacrifices before the God of hatred, malice, resentment, and bitterness. Forgive me for the thousands of hours that I have spent bringing sacrifices before the God of shame and guilt. Father, forgive me for the thousands of hours that I have spent in bowing myself down before the God of significance. And forgive me for the thousands upon thousands of times that I have given in to every craving, the cravings of my soul, that I have filled with sex, food, drink, gossip, work, instead of filling myself with you, pressing into you, yearning to hear from you, learning about you, spending time reading your letters that you've written me in this book. But instead, I have spent thousand upon thousand upon thousands of hours reading everybody else's books. Forgive me for not making you a priority in my life. Forgive me for my deception, thinking that because I go to a building or I listen to a certain music that somehow that was putting you first in my life. I confess now I have not put you first. Father, forgive me for the mistakes that I've made and the things that I have chased. Fill me with your healing. Fill me with your love. I don't deserve it. I deserve to die. But you have kept me alive because you love me for some strange reason. You believe in me. You have a plan for me, a plan to prosper me, a plan of good health, a plan of faith, fulfillment, adventure, freedom. Fill me with your love, your truth. Give me strength to turn away from the habits of making sacrifices before the gods of my time. Forgive me for bowing down to distractions. Forgive me for giving myself over to all these other voices, especially Rabbi Google or Rabbi Yahoo. That almost sounds real. Forgive me, Father, for not investing time in what you find to be important, like family, caring for others, giving compassion to others, showing mercy to others. Say, I have felt lonely and loneliness inside of my soul. I can see why. I've been serving other dead gods that cannot fulfill me. Who here has spent a lot of time worrying? Worrying about money, worrying about family members, worrying about your kids that are on the wrong track, worrying about your past mistakes haunting you in the future. Worry, guess what? That's a God. That's a God. The God of worry. What has it profited you? Making these sacrifices to the God of worry. Have you profited anything from it? Nothing. What will you do about it? You know what to say, right? Go ahead and say it. I'm going to say it too. Father, forgive me. I've spent thousands of hours letting worrisome thoughts in my mind. Forgive me. Worry, you're no longer needed. Worry, I hate you. You're empty. You're dead. You produce nothing good in my life. Worry, you're a filthy liar, and you're not worthy of my adoration. You're not worthy of my mind. You're not worthy of my time. You're not worthy of my heart. I'm done giving myself over to you. God of fear, I am done with you. I'm telling you today, you are fired. You are fired. You are useless. You are senseless. I no longer adore you. I no longer pay homage to you. I no longer bow down to you. God of poverty and greed, you're fired. I don't need you anymore. I don't even like you. I've never liked you. So you can shut up and go to hell where you belong. God of lust and perversion, Yeah, I've given you so much of my time. Oh boy, followed you all over the place, followed you into the wrong beds, the wrong chat rooms. I've followed you into the wrong phone conversations, the wrong text messages. I have followed you into the wrong Facebook private messages. Lust and perversion, you are fired. You're no longer needed here. I will no longer make sacrifices to you with my actions. Whatever gods it is that you've been serving, just let them know they're fired. I want you to allow God to show you the places that God has led you to and the emptiness of your soul due to worshiping that God. Yeah. Just giving you a picture and showing you all the places you've gone with those gods. I just discerned another one called perfection. The God of perfection. Oh my gosh. Such a filthy pig. The God of perfection. Who's been paying homage to that guy? You know what to do. You've been equipped. You've been spiritually equipped. Go ahead, let him know he's fired. Perfection usually brings pressure. Pressure to perform, pressure to be right, pressure to grow, pressure to beat everybody, pressure to make more, do more, be more. Pressure. Yeah, God of pressure and perfection, you are a pig. You are dead. You produce nothing but pain. You rob, you steal with the intention to kill. Pressure and perfection, you are no longer needed in my life. You are not welcome in my home. You are not welcome in my car. You are not welcome in the mirror. You are not welcome in my bank account. You're not welcome in my performance at work. You are not welcome in my marriage. You're not welcome in my parenting life. You are not welcome in my health. You are not welcome anywhere in my life. God of perfection and God of pressure, your assignment is canceled and you are no longer needed. I worship and I serve the one true God. His name is Yahweh, who sent his son Yeshua that washes me clean of all of my sin of worshiping you and bringing sacrifices to you. All the gods that I have mentioned, worry, fear, poverty, shame, guilt, go mess with something else. You will not touch me and you will not touch my people. You will not touch the influence. You will not touch their influence. You are fired. worship the one true God, the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I worship the creator of the heavens and the earth, who spoke everything into existence. I worship the Elohim of Israel, the God of Israel, who breathed into man, whom he formed from the dust, who breathed his spirit into man and called him Adam. And I am one of his descendants. I'm an Abraham descendant. I'm an Isaac descendant. Yes. That is my God. Therefore, you are no longer needed. Go ahead and go away. God of Abraham, God of Isaac, and God of Jacob, fill me with compassion. I do not deserve your mercy, for I have been way off track. I do not deserve your love, but because you promised to give it, and because you promised that you are rich in mercy, slow to anger, gracious and compassionate, I'm calling on what they have said about you. And I'm choosing to call upon the same God they called upon, and you answered them, and I ask that you answer me now. That you answer the cry of our hearts. And if our hearts are not broken enough, then break them. Yes. If our hearts are not humbled, then humble us. I give you my heart. I surrender my heart to you. Do what you will with it. Yes. Break my stubbornness. There's another one. Oh my gosh, there is another one right there. God of stubbornness. God of stubbornness. Whew, yuck. God of stubbornness. Ah. Yes. You are fired. I do not need you. I will not bow down to you any longer. The hardness of heart that stubbornness bring, I will not bow down to you any longer. The resentment, the bitterness, I will not bow down to you any longer. You are fired. You are done. The hot fire from the coals in the throne room of Almighty God comes against you. You are a false God. You are a God of this age. I have no need for you, no desire for you. Father, fill me with the same spirit that you filled Yoshiyahu with. The same spirit that you gave Hezekiah, King Hezekiah and King David. The same spirit you put into your son, Yeshua. Put it in us. Yes. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Father, give us a vision. Give us the vision that you have for us. I ask that you show all of us and all of your people throughout the globe, even right here, right now, this minute, not just in this room, but Father, do the same inside of our children that are at home. Do the same in our spouses that are at home. Do the same for the coworkers that we work with and the people that we do church with, the people that we do life with. Father, I pray right now, please, fill us with your vision. Fill us with your life. Breathe into us again. Renew a right spirit within us. Fill us with your spirit of forgiveness. Let that be a practice in our lives. Help us to be pliable. You said and you promised that you would write your word on our hearts. You said that you would take out a heart of stone out of our very chest, and that you would give us a heart of flesh that was pliable, that was humble. Father, do that in us now. Do it in all of us, all of creation. We need you so desperately. Teach us to tear down the Asherah poles. Teach us to tear down the altars in which we have built, that we have bowed down to. The altars of our work, the altars of money. Yes. Is that another one? Yeah. The God of judgment. Unrighteous judgment. You are a counterfeit. There is one judge, and it is not you. There is one judge. His name is Yahweh, the creator of the heavens and the earth. The unrighteous judge. You are fired. You are fired. I don't need you in my life. I don't want you in my life. You're a liar. You're filthy. You're disgusting. You produce nothing but pain. You produce nothing but hatred and malice, discord, dissension, and division. Father, please cancel all the bad seed that we have sown. Cancel all the bad seed that we have sown. Every sacrifice we've made to judgment, every sacrifice we've made to malice, every sacrifice we've made to all of these false gods that have been talked about tonight. The gods of our fathers and mothers who didn't even realize what it was that they were doing. They were taught to do the same exact thing. Thank you, Father. Oh, you are so good. Please, Father, cancel the bad seed. Please cancel the bad seed. I know I deserve the consequences of everything that I've done, but I have seen in this book that you have not paid the full consequences to the people who break their hearts, who come before you, who adore you, who seek you first. Not in self-righteousness, but in absolute humility. Fear and trembling iron out their salvation before you. I see, Father, that even the judgment skipped over Josiah because his heart was broken when he heard the truth. He knew what he deserved. He knew what the people deserved. He cried out for mercy, and you answered it. God, we are crying out for mercy. We are crying out to you. We're calling upon your name. You are the sustainer of life. You are the giver of life. You are the provider of all of our needs. Provide for us according to your riches and according to your glory, as a father wants to bless a child. Teach us as a father teaches a child. Teach us the ways, your ways. The ways of everlasting, not the ways that don't last. Forgive me for all the times I've gotten off track. And the filth, the places I've touched, the things I've done, the mistakes that I've made, the people I have failed. Please, Father, heal the people I have hurt. Please heal the ones I've hurt, intentionally or unintentionally. Heal the ones I've hurt, God. Heal the ones. Yes. Yes, Father. Change me, mold me, direct me, govern me. Do a new thing in me. Father, release your shalom and your Shabbat into our souls. Father, as we make this commitment to follow these other gods, open our souls to you. Give us rest, stillness inside of our souls. Tune our ears to hear you. Encourage us. Oh God, we need it so bad. We need it so bad. Make us givers. Make us givers. Givers of love, givers of compassion, givers of mercy, givers of joy, givers of laughter, givers of healing, givers of prophecy, givers of discernment, givers of protection, givers of edification, givers of acceptance. Fill my crowded soul. Yes. Come into me. Come into me. And move out everything that doesn't belong. Move out every wrong thought. Every thought that exalts itself higher than your truth. Move every thought out. You are so good. Bless our families. Bless our work. Bless the work of our hands. Bring us new relationships that will buoy us up and help us stand strong. People we can be transparent with. People that we can be strong for in their time of weakness. That will be strong for me in my time of weakness. Open our eyes, Father, to see you active in our lives. Open my ears. Open all of our ears to hear your voice. There's no one like you. There's no one like you. There's no one like you. None like you. None like you. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your presence. You are holy. You are holy. You are set apart. There's none like you. You're the God of all of the universe. There's none like you. Can you feel him? Can you feel the stillness inside of your soul? Can you feel that peace? Father, speak to your children now. Show them now in their heart how much you love them. How much you love us. Let them feel your smile, your tenderness. making them as white as snow, making our sins as white as snow. And uses it for a purpose. Tell him you love him. Tell him you love him. He's your Father. Tell him you trust him. Give him your life. He gave you life. Tell him you surrender all of your ways. Give him your strength, all your talent. Tell him, I give you my talent, I give you my strength, I give you my messed up, broken knowledge. I love you. Thank him for what he's done in you today. He's moved so much stuff out of the way. He's brought so much clarity into your soul. He's brought to the surface what matters so that you would agree with him to say, okay, I'm giving that up. I'm walking away from that. I'm done with that. He's invited you into freedom with him. He's invited you into a life with him. He's chosen you. He has chosen you. Because he adores you. He adores you. And he delights in you. I want to encourage you to stay in this room maybe, or go up to your room, grab your journal, your notebook, and I want you to just sit there and start writing. And I believe that he's going to start talking to you. And he's going to write a love letter to you, a letter of acceptance. He's going to begin to show you how much he adores you. No. Please. I want you to stay in this space. This quietness that's in your soul. Stay here and just begin to write what you're feeling. And you can ask him a question. Tell me how you love me. Tell me what you think of me. And even come to the place where you write what you need to hear. Write what you need to hear. And you're going to watch your pen being taken over. And you're going to start hearing something from your spirit. So I don't want to disrupt anybody. I want you to stay in this place, in this space. So even if you're gonna go upstairs or just go outside even, I bring earplugs with me everywhere so I can shut off the world and the noise so I can hear. So if you have earplugs, put them in your ears. So if you're gonna leave the room, do it so quietly. If you're gonna grab your notebook, do it really quietly. Just sit there and write. I want you to take what happened tonight and go deeper. Go deeper. It's important that you don't talk to somebody. If you talk to someone, you're gonna get out of the space that you're in.